Thank you, Cease. Oh, that is loud. I'm not a cancer survivor in a sense that I didn't have it physically in my body, but I am a caregiver survivor, and today I want to talk to you from that perspective. So it's a great honor and an absolute pleasure to be here on this very inspiring day to share my story with you. I'm also grateful to have the opportunity to introduce Sisters Hope, which was my charity that I brought to the organization this year. I'd ask you to stop by their table and get more information and find out what they're all about. One of my favorite quotes is from Albert Einstein, and it says, "There are two ways to live your life. You can live your life as if nothing is a miracle, or you can live your life as though everything is a miracle. Which you choose, of course, makes all the difference." Many of you may not even be here today if you did not believe in the latter, that everything is a miracle. I believe that every step we take, every word we speak, every person we meet, every part of our lives leads us on an unknown path with a purpose that is usually revealed in the last possible moment. I speak to you today from my perspective as my mother's caregiver as she battled colorectal cancer over the course of about 4 years. Anyone here who knows me will tell you that I rarely take on a task if I don't think I can make a positive difference and succeed. I mean, really, who among us likes to lose? Certainly not me. It wasn't inevitably in the cards, though. I thought I would be prepared for that moment when the battle was over, and success did not seem to be the result. This is why I love and cherish my friends who are survivors with such passion. I know all too well that not everyone gets to wear the badge of survivor. Not everyone is able to defeat the intruder that's invaded their bodies and claim victory over the non-conforming radical cells intent on destruction. Cranbrook Envisions a Cure, for me, is about community and coming together as a cohesive, loving entity with the intent to raise awareness, offer financial support to some amazing charities, embrace our survivor friends and family, and remember those that didn't win the physical battle. The fantastic irony about today is that cancer, by definition, is not part of a community. It doesn't want to be. It wants to go off on its own and surround itself with other cells that are as sick as it is and who themselves don't want to collaborate with the rest of the community and the body. You see, community is a feeling of fellowship with others through sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. It's the polar opposite of cancer. When my mother Judy was first diagnosed with cancer, my son Aiden, her third grandchild, was just a few months old, and the doctor wanted to suggest that she just get her affairs in order and call it a day. She had been misdiagnosed a couple of times, and the prognosis did not look good. But my little Irish Catholic mother was having none of it. She was going to live long enough to cement an indelible memory of herself in her infant grandson's mind and heart, no matter what it took. She made a conscious decision to fight and to live in a life of miracles. So we had a family meeting, my first smallest community of my father and my brothers, and since my mom lived a few hours away from here, it was decided she would move into my house while she underwent radiation, chemotherapy, and eventually surgery at Beaumont Hospital. Countless trips to the hospital, doctor's offices, emergency rooms, it seemed endless. One thing seemed to affect and exacerbate another as the balance of biology shifted in my mother's body, and the very things that were intended to save her life seemed to be making her sicker. I learned firsthand the meaning of the sandwich generation that year as I cared for my mother and my infant son at the same time. Can you vaccinate a baby who's living across the hall from someone with compromised immune system? I had so many questions that needed to be answered. And that's when I recognized this other community that came into our lives, one much bigger than my family. They are the doctors and nurses of the Rose Cancer Center at Beaumont Hospital. We spent a lot of time together, and I'll never forget in that last day at the chemotherapy, hiding behind a curtain and crying, so my mom wouldn't see me, as the oncology nurses, who I think are angels on earth, threw confetti and celebrated at the conclusion of my mom's final chemo treatment. And I thought, had we actually won? Was she now a survivor? Only time would have the answer. According to everyone, we were cancer-free, and life went on. Mom went back to her home, I went back to work, and we all went back to a new normal. Until that day a few years later when a blood test came back with unwelcome news. And once again, my mom made the decision to fight, but only if I could and would help her. So I said, really? You brought me into this world, changed thousands of diapers, drove me everywhere under the sun for years. Will I help? And her next words came quickly. She said, that's what a mother does for her child. So shut up and just answer me. And of course I couldn't resist the opportunity. Well, I said, which do you want? For me to shut up or answer you? She didn't appreciate that. The answer was really easy, as I didn't really know what round 2 would mean for both of us, and especially what it would mean for my mom. The ensuing battle was gruesome, relentless, and ugly, but always valiant. It seemed to have no rules and was rife with paths through uncharted territory, protocols I couldn't understand, frustrating setbacks, and glimmers of hope, a roller coaster of epic proportions. But my mother had a purpose and a goal. Aiden was still only 3.5, and she wasn't certain he would really remember her. So she worked hard, and she fought hard to beat the battle. And it wasn't just about Aiden. Her 2 other grandchildren, Lindsay and Tony, had milestones ahead of them that she was determined to live for too. On top of that, according to my mom, her church community needed her. She was in charge of Christian service outreach, so who was going to help the elderly and infirmed get to Mass, shovel their driveways, cook their meals? I said, Mom, that's you right now. You need to help yourself first. But she was sure that nobody else could do the job for her, so she was focused on getting back on her feet so she could get back to her caregiving. I could stand here for hours telling you story after story of horrible side effects, of overcoming my fear of injecting my mother twice a day with blood thinner medication, of mastering the art of lifting my mom off the toilet while swiftly pulling up her panties in one not so graceful move, and the time she smacked me in the head while executing this dangerous feat, because as the disease progressed, she didn't always recognize me. And now she wanted to know who was messing around on the floor at her feet while she was in the bathroom. It's really not the moment you want to say, it's me, your youngest son, James. You really just want to say, don't worry about it, I'll tell you later. I'm just here to take care of you. And you might think, how bad could a smack from a 75-year-old cancer patient be? Well, if you know Irish Catholics, they're prize fighters. So it was quite the swing. And there's later times when my mom looked at my bearded, 6-foot-tall, 275-pound oldest brother and told him that he was the prettiest Miss America they had ever chosen. Sometimes we just had to laugh and love the gifts that she gave us quietly. I cherished the family history hours where she would share stories of her youth, my grandparents, and extended family, and never before heard stories where she revealed that her sister and her had witnessed the Hindenburg disaster. Never knew it, but I did the math, I did the geography, and it made sense. So like I said, I could go on, but here's the point. My mother's suffering at the hands of this dastardly disease is something that I could only witness as I worked every day to alleviate the pain and uncertainty. It felt like a Herculean task. Many days for me started before the sun came up and ended when my mother and my baby boy were fed, changed, and sleeping soundly in their beds, usually sometime after midnight. Yet with everything I know and the luxury of 20/20 hindsight, I would do it all again without question or pause. You see, by saying yes to my mother when she needed me, by becoming a patient advocate for the person that gave me life, by setting aside my daily work and personal activities, and by being willing to do whatever was asked of me, I received these great gifts from my mother. I learned my most valued lessons. I finally found out how to prioritize life's challenges. I could see clearly what was truly important and what was actually irrelevant and unimportant. I learned how to just sit and listen, and how my opinion doesn't always need to be heard. I had the revelation that everything that's in my head does not need to come out of my mouth. I discovered that the best, most valuable words we can use are those that move life forward and come from love and happiness. That holding my mom's hand in public at the age of 44 is a wonderful thing, and there's pretty much nothing that embarrasses me now. That phrases like, I'm sorry, I forgive you, and I love you are for this world here and now. They're not for later or tomorrow or as we take our final breath. That there's no greater cause than to live one's life in the service of others. That there's no challenge I can't face and no task I can't handle. That I can find balance in my life and fear no path. That I am stronger, braver, and more confident than I imagined. That I have an unwavering conviction that no matter the short-term outcome, I will leave my world better than I found it. And that I can't and don't have to do it all alone. That I have a community. Fast forward to December 2007, Aiden is now 5 years old. He would spend many afternoons sitting with his grandma and caressing her hair and snuggling in her recliner with her. My partner Kevin was keeping our business going and giving me the space and encouragement I needed to care for my dying mother. My friend Christopher was filling in when I just needed to sleep in my own bed and get away for a couple of hours. And I knew that my little community of my family was giving me this chance to stay by my mother's side until whatever was going to happen would happen. We brought Mom home from the hospital for the last time, and with the incredible support of hospice, I was able to care for my mother at home, surrounded by those she loved. Early in the morning of December 4th, in my home less than a mile from here, my mom took her last breath and was relieved of her earthly binds and free from her pain. And the raw truth is that I was certain I had helped her in this transition from life into death, and that I was responsible for this inevitability. And just about anybody in my position will likely tell you the same. After much medication to make my mother more comfortable, I had fallen asleep holding her hand, and that's when she chose to leave. That's her style. She was trying to spare me the pain of seeing her go. I stood by her bed, hoping for her to breathe, and praying that she wouldn't, thinking I should unplug the oxygen, and afraid the silence would be too much for me to bear. Sorting out in my head the instructions that I had received from hospice, and forgetting to cry. So how did I balance it all out? Here's the most amazing thing that I discovered, and I want you to know. In the quietest moment in the darkest of the night, when my mother was the least physical she could have been, when she had almost no ability to communicate, to look me in the eye, or even whisper the smallest word, she was the most mother she could ever be. She showed me grace and peace and the strength of faith. She showed me that unconditional love can give me more than I could imagine. And in the end, she actually showed me how to die without fear. The autumn after my mother died, our family came to Cranbrook as Aiden began first grade at Brookside. We knew that this was a community of unparalleled beauty, but I had never imagined this moment. I remember the first day that Aiden got off the bus in the church parking lot, and it had been a rough year, and he turned around, and Lucy Murphy, now Moran, was his teacher, and hugged her, and she hugged him back. I said, "We're in the right place. He's loved." This opportunity to bring my mom back to life for this one day and share her with you this day is a miracle. You see, the greatest things about Cranbrook are standing here today, beyond the art and architecture, the manicured lawns and rippling waters, the education, the history, and the grandeur is all of you, the heart and soul that nurtures our children and binds us together through the good and the bad. I tell you this story today because I would ask just one thing of all of you. As I paraphrase one of my inspirations, Marianne Williamson, please think about how you may affect a life. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. And your playing small doesn't serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. And it's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So please don't be afraid to help someone in need, to be great, and to let the world know it. Become a patient advocate, support a charity, volunteer at hospice or in a local hospital. Don't be afraid to tell your story, because when you do, you will unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. Choose a life of miracles. Embrace the community that surrounds you, and share your light with the world. My mom and I would really like that. Thank you. I'd like to ask Mr. Miller to come up to the stage, please. There he is.
Boy, thanks, Steve. That's quite a story. Today we're here to take a walk.